We've just got off the train at Grindleford station in the Peak District, and you might be able to hear the rushing of the River Derwent, which is over to my left, but that is as nothing to the rushing of the water that is going down my neck as a result of the rain that's falling here today. And if you heard the episode we did in the Peak District with Bella Hardy, you'll know that it always rains when we come here. But we're not downhearted, and we're set to go for a walk with two really inventive musicians. Rowan and Anna Rheingans are the Rheingans Sisters, and they are multi-instrumentalists. They play all sorts of instruments, the banjo, the fiddle, some that I can't even put a name to. They've been nominated for loads of Radio 2 Folk Awards. They won Best Original Track in 2016, and they make a kind of music that opens your ears to a different set of possibilities, a European set of possibilities in folk music. It's rooted in dance, it's rooted in their own family heritage, and we're going to find out more about that as we walk with them today. Rowan and Anna, good morning.
Good morning.
How lovely to see you on this. Well, it's a bit overcast, isn't it?
Yes.
And we're at Grindleford station.
Yeah, welcome.
Where are we going to go to now?
We'll wander along the lane where we grew up, pop in on our parents, maybe go a little bit further along the lane.
Okay, let's go.
That's the legendary
like
Grindleford Cafe.
Why is it legendary?
Well, it's the best chip butties in the country.
Can we come back for lunch?
Pints of tea.
You can. I'm not having chips at the moment, but
Okay.
highly recommended.
And they've
And
got
pints of tea.
Grindleford sparkling water there as well, apparently.
Yeah, there's actually a well just behind the cafe.
Oh, is there?
Yeah,
Sauce.
yeah,
That's where it comes from. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to have chip butty and sparkling water.
very healthy.
Healthy,
Isn't
yeah.
it a sauce, though? It's not a well, it's a sauce.
A sauce, a water sauce.
A spring. It's
A
a
spring.
Yeah, it's a spring.
So it's Grindleford spring water.
Okay.
But we're
fair
not
enough.
sponsored by them.
No, we're not.
So is it unusual to have you both here at once?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't live far from here. I live in Sheffield, but Anna lives much further away.
You
Yeah.
live in Toulouse?
I live in Toulouse in the
France.
southwest of France, and usually this happens at Christmas.
You come
So
back to
that's-
see your mum and dad?
Yeah,
Reunion?
yeah. But who knows if this year that'll be possible.
Yeah.
We're going over a river.
This is the Derwent.
Yeah.
It runs all the way through those woods. It's really nice.
Yeah.
And up
Sort
at
of
Pamby Gorge, there's lots
cascading
of
down, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
cascading down the rocks
So it's
here.
the ford, really.
Of the Grindle.
It's the ford of the Grindle.
Yeah.
That's why it's called
Ah,
Grindleford. Yeah.
very
Grindleford.
good. So
And
is
Grindle
there's
is
the Grindle stream?
grind. It's grindstone.
Grindstone.
So it's the millstone grips that they made into these big millstones. We'll walk past and they're all scattered around all over this area.
And didn't they
So-
used to use those for grinding the cutlery in Sheffield? Isn't that where some of the
Yeah,
millstones
in
came from?
the steel industry, yeah, in the cutlery industry of Sheffield.
So what was your childhood like here?
Outdoorsy.
When I come here now, I think I see it with adult eyes. I think, wow, this is the place. I sort of see it with a bit of perspective. But when we grew up here, I mean, yeah, we were like played on the lane. We also were country bumpkins, a bit left out of the city.
I remember basically our social life was knocking on the other doors of the kids that lived, our neighbours,
Yeah.
and basically trying to rollerblade.
Badly
On
along
here.
this
What, down
lane.
here?
It
This
was-
is an
Yeah.
unmade surface.
We did try and roll
So
You
that's
must
why
have come
I
off,
don't-
fallen on your face about 12
Yeah.
times a minute.
Yeah, it's impossible. There is a flat a bit over there.
Did it have the
Like
effect on you of wanting to get out of here? I mean, did you feel that it was too small and that you wanted to
No.
escape? Or
No.
No, it was quite comfortable actually. I think I always was a bit of a solitary character, and I think I still like that I didn't grow up in loads and loads of city
Yeah.
streets, and it was calm. And we had a rope swing actually,
Just
which
up there?
was just behind those trees, which isn't there anymore, but that was a big important part of our childhood. We used to swing out the trees and
fantastic.
scare passers-by like Tarzan.
Like a sudden apparition coming out of
Yeah.
the trees at them.
Everything really happened on the lane.
And it's quite a special lane, this, because so where we've walked this way, if you walk the other way, you'd go to Grindleford village sort of centre. But this always felt a little bit like the outsiders, you know. And over the years, I mean, obviously people have moved in and out, but there's quite a special vibe here.
And we grew up in this house.
Yeah, this one
on
there,
the right, with the big rowan tree.
Big rowan tree outside.
Huge
You're named
rowan
after
tree.
that.
They put it in when we moved here, because I was 1 when we moved here.
And it's really, really big, and they didn't
It is
expect
unusually
it to
big.
get
They
that
keep having to trim it away from this electricity wire.
But we've got to mention music, because presumably music was all around you. Your mum was musical, your dad makes musical instruments.
Yeah.
So can you remember your first memories of music?
In the womb, I think.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
Well, our mum played in a ceilidh band, and she did a lot of gigs around the time that we were born.
Yeah.
So probably the first memories were just listening to her playing the soprano saxophone.
I remember
And-
being asleep on the
Yeah.
side of the stage. Must have been quite small.
In a
being
conga
asleep
bag.
in one of the sort of drum sacks of
The
ceilidh
drummer.
band.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been.
Yeah.
There was always music happening. And I think the bedroom we shared when we were little was also above the kitchen. And,
Yeah.
these houses, everything is very thin.
Yeah.
So just like our dad
Coming through the
playing in
floor.
the kitchen
Banjo,
would keep us awake.
Late
and,
Junction.
yeah,
washing
radio
up,
shows and records.
Lots of records, yeah.
Sometimes we'd
Psychedelic,
have a kitchen session.
folk,
Occasionally.
Clive Palmer, incredible string band, all that weird stuff.
Quite a range of stuff, yeah.
Growing up here, I had a secret passageway that went through all the gardens, but because we knew all the neighbours, like there's quite a few poets, we've got like poet laureates, we've got sculptors and artists, so like it's always been really quite arty and friendly.
Like an artistic community.
Yeah, definitely. The neighbours were always coming round for our birthdays, and we were always going round for a cup of tea and being cheeky.
Well, then somebody would be
And-
doing some sculpting in the corner of the room, or
Yeah, there's quite a few creative cabins actually along here. So it's just such a nice community. There's a lot of people that have been here since before we were born.
Yeah.
So they've watched us grow up.
And Rowan, when you look back on it now, how do you think it's affected you that you grew up in that kind of community? How do you think it shaped you?
A sense of like solitude, I suppose, and quietness, but then with this train rattling, and actually shaking the bedrooms, there's a sense that like we were never cut off totally. When we were at secondary school, you could kind of get the train along to your friends' houses that way, or when we were a bit older, you could get the train into Sheffield. There it is,
Very good.
on cue.
Yeah.
I think the train is a very big part of why this place feels nice.
Round the valley actually, these villages, our mum was part of it. When we were growing up, she was invited in to do some music at our primary school, and it turned into like quite a big folk music community. So there were kids playing squeeze boxes, playing melodeons and accordions and concertinas. And then she organised a folk festival, and I think she kind of helped bring that kind of stuff to the valley. And then, so it was quite unusual, I think, looking back on it, that at primary school, even in secondary school as well, there was a kind of folk band going on. So like we went to the same secondary school as like Bella Hardy, for example, who's also gone on to do folk music. And
when did you first pick up an instrument?
oh, I don't remember, but probably
There was many
stuff lying around.
Yeah.
Drums and maracas and harmonicas and melodicas and piano, always a piano, always squeeze boxes.
I mean, we got our first tiny handmade fiddles very young,
Yeah.
but I
Which
don't
your
really.
dad made.
Which our dad made. He wanted to make
Yeah.
these small fiddles for us.
So
And
how
obviously-
big were they?
It's like a 16th.
Yeah.
So
They're pretty small. There might
What
still
about-
be one.
there
in the
is
workshop.
one. There is
Yeah.
7 or 8
hanging up.
inches
You can
long.
have a look. You can have a look.
Yeah, I'd like to see them.
It's really small. We were probably about 4.
It wasn't till quite a lot later that fiddle playing became our central thing. I just have a memory
Yeah.
of there always just being lots of stuff to make music with.
Yeah.
You know, rather than like, here is your fiddle, now you must play the fiddle. It was like, you know, I used to play the piano a lot when I was little, just
Piano.
improvising, just making
songs.
noises and singing on the way to school. Like,
We did a lot of singing,
Yeah.
making up songs. We had one song called Similar Socks where we used to make up verses in the car. It was improv, you know, and then there was the chorus.
How did it go?
go on, Anna.
Similar socks, similar socks. The best I can do is similar socks, similar socks, similar socks. The best I can do is similar socks. And then it always starts with, well, I woke up this morning, and then you've got to make up your story of why you've got similar socks on. I think it was because basically we never had matching socks.
So yeah,
So
Yeah.
um,
And we had a bit of a drive to school.
we had a bit of
Because we
drive
went to school in the next
went to
village.
school in Eam, the Plague
Plague Village,
Yeah.
yes.
because it was a bit
And it was known
better.
as the Plague Village because it was sealed off, wasn't it,
Yeah.
for,
Yeah,
by,
yeah.
by the plague? I mean, they were quarantined effectively
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
those days, weren't
No,
they?
it's become
Yeah,
very
in the
pertinent.
1600s, yeah.
And
they
the
shut
Eam was
themselves
locked
off.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we spent a lot of our time in the playground, like watching other school groups trail past, like looking at us. You know,
Coming
like,
to
we're
the story of the Plague
Yeah,
Village.
and we used to do like, you
Yeah.
know, we used to go up and be like, well, we've got the plague,
Yeah.
or like, play up to it a little bit.
So
So lots of walkers going past today. Hello. Hello.
this is a popular walking spot. So this is number 7, where we grew up.
So we're going workshop, or are we going?
Let's go down to
Yeah.
the workshop, shall we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
that'd be great.
Our dad's in. He's going out
Well,
later.
we'd love to see your dad.
He's going out playing the banjo later, but he's here now.
They're both in. Keen to meet, I think.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So this is our mum,
Hello.
Cass.
Hello there.
Sorry about the rain, but
Oh, it's not raining too hard. We're coping.
So watch yourselves on these steps.
Is he down there, Cass? Okay.
There's a banister here.
Oh, very useful.
Matthew.
Always handy.
It's a little treacherous for the
Little bit slippy.
customers.
We've got
That's
lots
my
of raised
strawberry patch.
beds.
Yeah, I'm in charge of the weeding, but I don't come here very often. So
Yeah, you haven't done a lot, have you? I can see.
It's pretty wild. No dig, no weeding approach. Right.
So this is the workshop. It's like a shed at the bottom of the garden. And here's
Yeah.
your dad. Oh, there's a
Yeah.
train going past as well.
So this is Helmut.
Hello, sir.
nice to meet
I'm
you.
Matthew. Shall I put my mask on before we
if
come
we're going
inside?
in, yeah, sure, and we can do that as
How
well.
lovely to see you.
This workshop smells so evocative.
The varnish is alcohol based,
That's
so
it. It's
very
so
appetizing smell, but I wouldn't recommend it.
it can't just be that then, it's something else. It's something very cosy as well.
I think the wood. I think
Yeah.
the smell of wood is a really
It's the wood,
constant
it's
smell.
the glue is a combination. Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe come in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What a wonderful place. I'm just going to describe this helmet, if you don't mind, for our listeners, because I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 violins hanging up. Is this?
And
oh, then-
these, and
and there's some more over here. About
That was
that was a
mine.
tiny one.
That was Anna's.
That was your tiny violin.
How old was that when you made that?
I don't know. I just know
It was 2
when
years.
I was finished with it, you were grown out of it. So you had the next size. I made a couple. The next size was a bit bigger.
And then you've got all your tools beautifully arrayed on the wall.
Yes, I need to have my order. You know, you need to know where everything is. Carving tools, little planes, and chisels.
What is this instrument here?
This is a bansitar. which
Your
is-
own invention, I think.
I think I can claim that. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about that. That's a combination of
It's
a
a
banjo
combination
and a
of a banjo.
sitar.
It's actually, technically, it's a sitar, like the Indian sitar, but it's the dimensions of a banjo. It has 5 strings. It's a sitar for the Westerner.
How do you get it to make that resonant sound from such a small body? That's very interesting.
It's a hollow wooden body. The bridge design defines this long sustain or acoustic sound distortion. Basically, I copied a sitar bridge, which is made from maple with a piece of bone on the top that's slightly rounded and a piece of ebony to locate the strings. So the string bounces off the bone. So can you see that?
Yeah.
But it's a hollowed body like a mandola or whatever. But it's the bridge that gives the sound.
It's beautiful. Helmut, what started you off on making instruments?
Oh, I don't know, playing music. I played the guitar from an early age. I suppose when I was 10 or so, I had lessons. In my teenage years, I customized my own instruments and my friends, and I wanted to learn guitar making, really.
So why did you end up with violins and banjos, do you think?
Yes, mostly sort of by accident. No, I mean, I looked around. This was in Germany where I grew up, and the system is we have to apprentice, or it was then. There was only one school in Mittenwald, and that was impossible to get in. And so I traveled around visiting makers, initially guitar makers, and there weren't many, and it was sort of a funny time in the mid-70s. They all closed down and shipped their stuff to Korea and had things made there, and then any other stringed instruments makers. I went around the Alpine regions, Austria, Switzerland, harp makers, zither makers. No success. Subsequently, I studied guitar for a bit in Cologne, a couple of years, and then I tried again with writing. It was before the internet, you know.
So you were sending off letters asking for work?
Yeah.
Asking for an apprenticeship?
For apprenticeship. About 120 letters with stamp addressed envelopes and everything. And I had one positive reply from a violin making workshop. So I packed my bags and went there 3 months too early in Heiligenberg, which is near the Lake Constance, the south of Germany, south of the Black Forest. But I refused to.
You were so keen to get there.
You
wanted to be there
no,
3
it was
months
sort of a
early.
bit chaotic. But they gave me a corner in the workshop, and I had to prepare bows for rehairing. They gave me a job, and I slept on the floor, you know.
Well, you slept in the workshop?
No, not in the workshop, but in the apprentice house where the old apprentices sleep.
Well, they
there.
put you on the floor and they had the bed.
Sleeping bag.
Right.
I was perfectly happy. I knew I was right, and that's.
You found the right place. You found a
I
home.
stayed there for 4 years, you know.
Right. And so am I right in thinking that the violins you make now are based on designs by the great masters?
Yes, I've got 2 models, Stradivari and Guarneri. When I was apprentice, so my first 2 violins were my own models, and it was a big mistake.
They didn't go so well.
They were all right, but they looked a bit strange, you know. When I came over here, I showed my fiddle around, and Dietrich Kessler, who was then the director of Withers in London, and he told me, well, it might be sensible to look at old masters first. And for the next 20 years, I just tried to copy Guarneri and Stradivari and every detail, outline, F-holes, scroll. Because then, once you know what you're doing, then you could put your mark.
Then you can embellish it your way.
And it's your interpretation.
And what about your daughters here? Because they're obviously great multi-instrumentalists. Did you always want them to do that? Did you school them in that from a very early age?
It was inevitable, I think. Something they picked up along the way. I mean, the house is full of instruments, and Kathy and me, we were always involved in music making, in playing various instruments. I took to the banjo then a few years ago. That's why I started making banjos. That's my main instrument now.
You think they just...
And they just picked it up.
They couldn't avoid it.
There's
They could have gone one of 2 ways, though, couldn't it,
concertinas.
Helmut? I mean,
Yes,
they
it
could have, you know, they
Yeah,
could have
I'm glad.
decided they wanted to be astronauts
I'm
or
glad
something
that it
and
worked
rebelled.
out that way.
You're glad it worked out that
We
way.
never formally taught them. You know, that was the key to it, probably. You know, the best things in life you pick up sort of on the way, I think.
I'm just wondering whether your mum and dad are your worst critics. When they come to one of your gigs, do they sit there and go, "Oh, I don't know, you're a bit out of tune on
or what?
No,
No.
You're
never.
proud of them.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
So Anna, you're tuning an instrument here, which is very personal, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is a little fretless gourd banjo, 5-string, that I made with my dad during lockdown.
I wonder if it gave you a new respect for your dad, the process of making it.
Yeah, a new understanding, a new, deeper understanding of the patience that he has. I realised that I definitely wouldn't go into lutherie, instrument making, because it's just way too precise and I don't have the patience.
I think you got quite a big insight of what actually happens down here as well, more than me or...
I got
like
a
our
lot
mum
of
has.
insight, I learnt loads, and it
What
was
was
a
the thing
really
that surprised
good
you most?
learning some of the technical physics of acoustics. The fact that my dad can tell like 1 degree angles from a 2 degree angle by eye. That was pretty surprising.
Yes, it comes with years of experience.
Of course.
Measuring with your fingers rather than any measuring
rulers.
device. You can feel if a top knot is wide enough or not, and you can see it. Yes.
And he's an absolute perfectionist, as am I. So it was difficult, but we managed to get there.
Will you play it for us?
Yeah, sure. So. I've never played fretless banjo before, and obviously there's no frets, so if you want to play in tune it's quite hard, so you have to kind of learn where they are. But it's a lot of fun because you can do all these slides and you can also play non-Western music, so you can play the notes off the occidental scale and in between notes, microtones and things, which is great. They are quite hard, and I think that's probably why gourds have been used for instruments since, forever.
There's a little door in the corner here which has a door harp on it. I'm just going to open.
Normally it's a diminished 7 on there, but I haven't tuned it for a while.
Right. And then in the corner is your collection of pipes and all sorts of memorabilia in here.
Yes, well, if you look up, there's also my bottle opener collection, which is about approaching 100. But it's sort of my installation. I call it Little Germany. I had a model railway as a child in the 60s. So I haven't got the space to put the railway set up. So there's a glass cabinet, and on 3 levels displays. So the bottom is a railway station. The middle part is rural scene with a couple of farmhouses. To the right is urban scene with more cars and a hotel. And the top one is a freight train and building site.
And does it remind you of your childhood?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm really conveying the joy of being here, because it is absolutely a joyful room. Oh, I'm just coming back through the harp. And now Anna's back with some instruments. What have you brought?
I've brought my fiddle, Brian. It's a Stradivari model.
Yeah.
And I've brought a 5-string banjo, and Rowan's brought 5-string banjo as well.
What have you got on your back there, Rowan?
My fiddle and viola case.
Well, fantastic. What would you like to play for us?
We'll play you a tune that we haven't played for a little while, actually. It's another one of Anna's compositions, and it's inspired by our love of Scandinavian fiddle music. And it's in particular inspired by the icy pavements of Trondheim in Norway. And it's called Glatt Ugle.
Anna, I wonder why France? Why was it that you were drawn to study French music?
Well, I came across the traditional music of Gascony, so southwest in Allier, at a festival in 2010, and it was just like something very new. The music is quite distinctive, rhythmically, and the dance as well, and I just sort of fell in love with it. And I ended up getting a job in Toulouse, a nannying job, and then I discovered the conservatoire and all the people there, the scene in Toulouse.
So there is a big scene in Toulouse of indigenous music, as it were.
Yeah.
The local folk
But
music.
not only, there's a lot of people that live in Toulouse from Mexico, from Brazil, from Spain, a lot of musicians and circus people and artists, and a conservatoire there that offers a diploma in traditional Occitan music. So I've ended up
So you
staying
kind of
there.
made your home there.
Yeah.
And Rowan, when Anna brought this kind of sensibility back to you, how did you react to it?
Well, I'd been at these festivals before Anna moved. You know, we kind of in the summers usually seek out these refueling opportunities, you know, sometimes in Sweden, sometimes in France, these festivals where we can, I mean, they're a bit different from the festivals that happen here. Although, I mean, the idea is the same, you know, gathering together, playing music and dancing. But
There's less sit-down concerts.
less sit-down concerts, yeah, more just like the buzzy gathering of musicians, basically. And so, yeah, it wasn't an alien music to me, like I already loved it. But then the kind of depth, I suppose, with Anna's study then added a whole new layer to that sound and that we
Well, I
still
suppose
play with,
Perhaps
really.
it's not surprising that you both seem to have a kind of European sensibility.
Absolutely,
I mean, given your parentage,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I mean-
but you look to Scandinavia for your
Yeah.
influences, and you look to mainland Europe.
Yeah, it feels very obvious to us to do that. Like, I suppose partly having a German dad and having like German grandparents, you know, our summers, we were always travelling into Europe. But we don't play any German folk music, for example. You know, we've kind of followed the music that we love more than like nationalities or...
But I wonder if it made you more open
I think so.
to those influences
Yeah.
than other people perhaps would be.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, the initial impetus to go to Sweden, you know, we had heard some, you know, like Swap was a great favourite band of ours growing up, which was 2 English and 2 Swedish players. But the impetus to go to Sweden and study was actually because in Sweden there are these schools where you can study traditional fiddle music and there's no fees. And actually, when I went there as a 19-year-old, mostly I just wanted to play the fiddle for a year. And Sweden was the place that was offering that.
But then the music got under your skin, presumably.
Absolutely, yeah, totally.
Should
Yeah,
we
totally.
just go through this gate and across
Okay.
this cattle gate?
Yeah. I think maybe for us also, we get excited about the connections that can be made and interested when we hear a new fiddle style that we haven't and that isn't necessarily our thing. And I think we will never ever run out of fiddle styles. The world plays the fiddle and we'll never run out of these amazing sounds to dig into. So for us, I think it's a personality thing. We love that.
But you're definitely opening my ears when I listen to your albums. You're opening my ears to rhythmic feelings and combinations of harmony and dissonance, you know, that I don't often hear in the traditional folk scene.
Yeah, I mean, we don't play any jigs or reels in our set. And for 2 fiddlers, you know, you think a night of fiddle music, you might hear a jig.
I just wonder if you listen to contemporary classical music as well, because there's something in the patterns that you create
music.
that has
I
some
mean,
relation to that.
I love Baroque. We just let ourselves, you know,
Well, we want-
experiment a little bit with those new sounds. Like, what could we do with this piece?
Wow.
All right.
Wow, that's powerful.
I could not really remember what I was doing.
No.
But it's really powerful to hear you play so close up, I must say.
Yeah, it's
Those
nice.
violins make such a resonant,
They're pretty
wonderful
loud, aren't they?
noise.
Yeah, that's our favourite thing, I think, to sit, you know, completely opposite and just have that full, you know, the other, you know, one of us is fiddle in the face. It's good. It's a
Yeah.
nice feeling.
Yes.
And is there a sort of sibling empathy when you play together? I mean, is it because you've played together so often and so long in your lives, is there something that's special about being related?
I think there is something very special. I always find this question very interesting because I think people I think it's like incredibly cathartic to be, so in love as sisters. We are obviously deeply connected, but as with all like love relationships, the best ones are like full of all emotions. So I think for us, it's the edginess as well as the complete empathy and compassion. It's, we can really push and pull and battle, and I think all of that as well feeds the music.
So you can be rude to each other without ever knowing that the other person's going to stop loving you. I mean,
that's it. I guess that's the danger, isn't it? You can really go to your edges with someone that you are that close to, and musically, I think that's really exciting and dangerous. Yeah, which is exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you
definitely
think?
I agree. I don't think we work in the same way with each other as we do with other professional relationships, because we have a personal relationship as well. So we have shared memories.
And I guess
really
also
rich.
We can read each other dangerously well. So, the tiniest bits of communication are very big, like in a concert setting. And so, a lot of our gig is semi-improvised. And I think for us to be able to access each other quite easily is really good for that.
You can just catch Anna's eye and
exactly
what's going on.
I know exactly what's going on, and that can be a great thing. But also, if one of us isn't having a great time, and we also feel that, right? So, it's just very visceral, I think. Yeah.
Do you have big rows?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes.
Oh yes.
Of course.
Yeah. And when we were little, it took us a while to be able to play and enjoy playing together.
Yeah, definitely.
That wasn't a given. We're sisters like any other sisters.
But do you have to move to France sometimes to get away? I mean, do you have to? Is that one of the reasons you wanted to go to a different country to get away from the claustrophobia too?
Yeah, I think so.
I think definitely. Part of it was also to take my own path, different traditions.
And it's that like collision of those two perspectives as well. I think that's in some of our better work, like that's really, really present.
And is dancing still important as well? Because that's sort of where you come from.
Yeah. So obviously growing up we did clog dancing. That kind of instilled our sort of rhythmic dancing abilities, and we were always doing Kayleys and stuff. But we discovered French traditional dancing and Scandinavian traditional dancing, which is a kind of more organic approach. It's sort of like social dancing.
Less sort of rigid than a Kayley.
It's much less rigid, and there's no instructions. It's just dances that people know. So it's like waltzes, Scottish. There are collective dances as well, like the rondo in France, and in Sweden it's very much couple dances. And we've both danced all night at these festivals in Sweden. And
all night?
There's definitely, yeah.
Sounds like they shoot horses, don't they, isn't it? I mean, you know that film, they keep kind of dancing marathons going.
But it's a meditative magic. It's a...
That's the word I was going to use.
Yeah.
About some of your music is that it feels like, to me, you get into that rhythmic pattern and then I get into a kind of meditative state listening to it.
But it's immersion in these places that have helped us sort of like really embody those rhythms. So like the particular rhythms of Scandinavian fiddle playing, for example, they are connected to the traditional dances. So being dancers, I think that helps us embody those rhythms and really know how to play the music.
Whether it's quite old folk dance forms or whether we're like at a club, I think we're both kind of naturally lean to like trance. And I don't mean like trance music as in like electronic dance music, I mean trance sensibility.
Yeah.
And I think that you can find that in very contemporary places, but you can also really, really find that in these old tunes. You know, a lot of the spells that these tunes cast is to make you, we can like dive into a tune and then 20 minutes later we sort of come out of it and
it takes you out of yourself.
It's repetitive trance.
You're going to sing a song for us which in a way represents that sort of trance-like process, I suppose. Tell us about that.
So Keep the Whole Thing Turning is one of many songs that I've written, not necessarily about dancing, but I feel like the way I've understood essential things about life is usually through dancing and usually in the dance.
You mean dancing helps you to come to terms with things?
No, I sort of understood not only sort of metaphor, but just actually really how to exist, and dance experience for me is a very instructive thing for other aspects of life. So Keep the Whole Thing Turning I wrote quite a few years ago after a particularly exhausting and exhilarating week of dancing in Sweden, and the feeling of just pushing and carrying on in this circle and not thinking about anything else. And I like to write from those very kind of, almost peripheral visioned places. It's not looking at something too directly to speak about being in the world. And I think another aspect of the Keep the Whole Thing Turning song that other people have sort of commented on as well is like, for us, the universality of dance is a very comforting thing, in the world that's a very scary place in a lot of ways and people feel very divided, that everywhere you look people want to move, and I find that comforting. With 2 feet on the ground, the fire is still burning. Give me your hand, I will keep the whole thing turning. Give me your hand while the music isn't ending. With 2 feet on the ground, we can keep the whole thing turning. The sun has not gone down.
has gone down, and the birds they are still singing. Give me your hand, and we'll keep the whole thing spinning. With 2 feet on the ground, and the last dance is still moving. Until we all fall down, we can keep the whole thing turning. Give me your hand while the music isn't ending. With 2 feet on the ground, we can keep the whole thing spinning.
Let's talk then about your latest album, which is called Receiver. Is it called Receiver because you see yourselves receiving music and passing it on? Is that one
Partly.
way of looking at it?
That's not far off, actually. It reflects our kind of creative process, and also the creative process of Pierre-Olivier Boulan as well, the photographer that we've collaborated with.
Right, now he's your next door neighbour in Toulouse.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
my neighbour for a time.
And he's a photographer who does what?
He's actually a sound engineer, but he has been a photographer for many years, and he specialises in pinhole photography, makes his own pinhole cameras.
Out
So
of what?
he's out of coffee tins, little boxes of tea, any sort of metal tins, really.
And where does he put them?
He puts them on his balcony.
And was that how you first noticed them? Or
Yes.
you saw them from looking
Yeah.
from your balcony onto his balcony?
He spent a lot of time on his balcony, and I spent time on my balcony, so
And you said, what are you doing with those tins?
inevitably asked what he was doing with all these tins. Some of them were great contraptions, sort of like whiskey tins, long ones, soldered together, and sometimes he goes to the mountains and attaches them to pylons. And various
and he
places.
just makes a pinhole in
Yeah,
it.
but it's not as simple as that. It
Okay.
has to be the correct DPI and calculated to do with the distance from the hole to the paper.
Right, so he
which
puts photographic
goes inside.
paper.
Yeah. The light will go and hit, and the paper will curve in a certain way, and it'll hit it in different angles. And sometimes he has multiple holes, so 5 in the same camera, for example, which will make 5 different images, and he leaves them there for months or
For months,
weeks.
right.
In some cases,
This is a long exposure.
yeah, he does quick ones too.
So
and
what comes out?
the image, basically. For example, an arc of sunlight. So if it's over many weeks, there'll be many arcs of sunlight. So you
So
can actually
the
see
passage of time.
the passage of time.
Exactly.
And the passage of the sun and the seasons as well. You can see kind of traces of the trees, traces of the balcony, the buildings, the cars parked. So depending on what the weather's been like, you'll have different kind of shades that come out and different marks. So you'll have like water marks or dust marks or pollen marks.
And I have to say that these images are embedded in your album artwork, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, he became a big part of it. I think what fascinated us so much, like the images are beautiful to look at, but the process seems so like how we like to work. We really welcome kind of accidents and unexpected leaks. You know, like I mean, you know, in our music, just seeing what else comes in. You know, and I think the way that he opens up these cameras and just has to work with what is then there. We came to this word receiver as quite an active word, not as just like, oh yeah, we're just going to sit around and then get some stuff. Like it's like you need to pay a lot of attention to fully receive. And I think that
And be ready.
You've got to be open.
really open, really ready for like even ugliness to come in, you know, and not always searching for this beautiful, perfect image.
And you've obviously gone to an enormous amount of trouble with this album.
Yeah, I think it feels nice as well in this age of digital music to give people a real, you know, sit down and really
A
savour this
38-page
album.
book,
Yeah, what do you think?
basically, with some
Is it a bit
beautiful
much?
illustrations and
Yeah.
words and stories,
Right,
and
we want people to immerse themselves. That's
And it
that's
starts
the invite.
with a song which I experience as almost like a painting. Do you know what I mean? When I hear it, I feel the colours leaping out at me and the scene. It's like an oil painting to me. I don't know if that's how
I love that.
you see it.
Yeah, I see that song in colours. So the song that opens the album is The Yellow of the Flowers. It came out of a morning a few years ago, sitting in my home and watching this kind of grey, drizzly, bustling city. And you know, on some days you feel more connected to the outside world than others. And I felt very disconnected that day.
This is
And
Sheffield,
then,
is
in
it?
Sheffield, yeah. And then basically there was just these daffodils. It was early spring, you know, February, when everyone's getting the first daffodils out of the shop and just trying to bring some kind of bright hopefulness into the end of the winter. And it was something about how do I find inspiration in a grey situation. And actually, sort of strangely, and I love this, it gives me a lot of confidence in songs when this happens. Through the pandemic, through lockdown, it's taken on this like strange nostalgic quality to sitting and watching a bustling community get the kids to school, and suddenly, you know, I'm longing for that.
We've got some found sounds on there as well from the primary school.
From the primary school opposite
Where-
where I used to have my studio, yeah, on their lunch break, I just stuck my mic out there and got some laughter and these simple sounds that we take for granted, but they are everything.
A steady flow of humans move beyond the curtain of the windowsill they sit on. The yellow of the flowers, they hurry past the window, can't be late for school now, and the rain is coming thicker.
This
Now,
is surprise view,
just,
by the way.
Can I just,
You can't see
here
it.
we are. I don't really need to explain to you that it is actually raining. And,
think we have
and
to
that while
say
we've been
it
talking
is.
and walking, we're getting a bit wet.
Yeah.
And that there is mist on the hills around us, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
we can see over this dry stone wall here
Yeah.
a wonderful valley with green trees dotted throughout. And it's a very green valley actually at the
It's
moment, isn't it?
It's a very lush
It's
valley.
the Hope Valley. It's called the Hope Valley.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's a shame it's so misty because on a clear day, if you just wander a tiny bit further up, you can see right along into the next village and the one after that. And it's called Surprise View because when you come around the corner,
It just opens up in
Yeah,
front of
it's
you
really
and like an
beautiful.
amazing panorama.
Yeah. But this is atmospheric
Well,
too.
I'm happy with it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and I'm so grateful to you for bringing us here and for sharing your music and for sharing your stories as well. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe or follow us to make sure you get all our episodes as soon as they're launched. And please rate and review us so others can find us. If you'd like to make a small monthly donation to help us produce more wonderful episodes, you can become a patron by going to folkonfoot.com and clicking on Support Us. We'd really appreciate it if you did. To keep up with the latest information, you can sign up for our newsletter at folkonfoot.com or follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram with the handle @folkonfoot. We hope you enjoy listening to Folk on Foot just as much as we love making it.